What if you could walk into any room and instantly know who is lying to you, who secretly dislikes you, and who's only pretending to care? Not through magic, not through guessing, but through science. Think about the last time you had a conversation with someone and something felt off. You couldn't name it, you couldn't prove it, but your stomach tightened, your skin prickled, and later you found out you were right all along. That feeling wasn't random, it was your brain picking up signals you hadn't learned to name yet. Here's the truth most people never realize. Human beings are leaking information every single second. Before a person opens their mouth, their body has already told you whether they're nervous, confident, attracted, repulsed, honest, or hiding something. The problem isn't that the signals aren't there. The problem is you haven't been trained to see them. Some of these signals last less than 1/25th of a second, faster than an eye blink, faster than conscious thought. They're called microexpressions, and they reveal emotions people desperately want to hide. FBI profilers use them to catch killers. Psychologists use them to uncover trauma. Negotiators use them to close million-dollar deals. And once you learn to see them, you'll never unsee them. But here's what makes this skill both powerful and dangerous. Powerful because you'll finally understand what your gut has been telling you all along. Dangerous because once you see people clearly, you can't pretend anymore. You'll notice the smile that doesn't reach the eyes. You'll catch a pause before the lie. You'll feel the shift when someone's words stop matching their body. Some people spend their entire lives being manipulated, lied to, and emotionally drained, simply because they never learned to read the signals. They trust the wrong people. They miss the red flags. They ignore the whispers until the screams are deafening. This audiobook isn't about turning you into a suspicious, cold observer of humanity. It's about giving you back your natural gift, the one evolution hardwired into your nervous system thousands of years ago, before words existed, when survival depended on knowing in an instant who to trust and who to run from. By the time you finish this journey, you'll walk into rooms and feel the emotional temperature before anyone speaks. You'll detect lies before they're fully formed. You'll connect with people on levels most don't even know exist. The truth is hidden in plain sight. You just need to learn how to look.
Chapter 1. The Silent Language You've Been Missing. In 1997, FBI Supervisory Special Agent Mark Safarik walked into an interrogation room to question a suspected serial killer. The suspect had already denied everything for 6 hours straight. His words were calm, consistent, and convincing. On paper, he seemed innocent. But Safarik wasn't listening to the words. He was watching the man's left foot. Every time the suspect denied knowing the victim, his foot tapped once, a single involuntary twitch beneath the table. When asked about his whereabouts on the night of the murder, his breathing shallowed for exactly 3 seconds. When shown the victim's photograph, his pupils dilated despite his blank face. Safarik didn't need a confession that day. He already had his answer. The body had spoken louder than words ever could. This is the silent language you've been missing your entire life. Long before humans developed complex language, we communicated through gesture, posture, and expression. Our ancestors didn't need to say danger when widened eyes and tensed shoulders transmitted the message instantly across the camp. They didn't need to declare love when mirrored movements and soft postures bonded pairs without a single sound. That ancient wiring still runs through every interaction you have today. Consider this. Communication researchers have spent decades studying how meaning transfers between humans. The consistent finding? Words carry only 7 to 35% of emotional meaning, depending on the study. The rest, the overwhelming majority, travels through tone of voice, facial expression, body movement, posture, and energy shifts. Some estimates place nonverbal communication as high as 93% in emotionally charged conversations. Think about what that means. Every conversation you've ever had, you've been missing more than half of what was actually communicated. The person who says, "I'm fine," while their jaw tightens and their eyes dart away, isn't fine. The colleague who agrees with your idea while their body angles toward the door isn't agreeing. The date who smiles while their fingers fidget with a napkin isn't as comfortable as they appear. But here's the hope in all of this. Reading these signals isn't a gift reserved for FBI agents, psychologists, or naturally intuitive people. It's a skill, and like any skill, it can be learned, practiced, and mastered. The human brain is already wired for pattern recognition. Every time you've ever felt that someone was lying without knowing why, your subconscious mind was processing signals your conscious mind hadn't yet cataloged. You already have the equipment. You just need the owner's manual. This chapter is where you start building it. Not by memorizing a list of gestures like some kind of human cheat sheet, but by training your perception to slow down, to notice, to see what's always been there, hidden in plain sight, waiting for someone who knows how to look. The silent language has been speaking your entire life. Today, you finally learn to hear it.
Chapter 2. Baselines, the foundation of all truth. A few years ago, a young woman sat across from her boyfriend at a restaurant. He seemed off. His hands fidgeted with the napkin. His eyes darted around the room. He barely touched his food. Every textbook sign of deception was there, clear as day. She'd been reading about body language online, and her newly trained eye spotted every single red flag. Convinced he was hiding something, she confronted him. Turns out he'd just been laid off that afternoon and was terrified to tell her. She read the signals correctly, but interpreted them completely wrong. The anxiety was real. The deception wasn't. She forgot to ask the most important question in all of people reading. What's normal for this person? This is the baseline principle, and without it, your people reading skills will fail you again and again. A baseline is someone's natural behavior when they're relaxed, comfortable, and under no pressure. It's their emotional resting state, the way they sit, speak, gesture, and make eye contact when nothing is at stake. Before you can detect when something has changed, you must first know what normal looks like. Imagine trying to tell if a car engine is making a strange noise without knowing how it sounds when running perfectly. You can't. The same applies to human behavior. Some people naturally gesture wildly when they talk. Some people never make eye contact. Some people fidget constantly as a personality trait, not a deception signal. Some people speak slowly and pause frequently even when being completely honest. If you don't know their baseline, you'll misread their deviations every single time. The FBI trains agents to establish baselines within the first few minutes of any interaction. They ask neutral questions about the weather, the traffic, anything non-threatening. They watch how the person behaves when there's nothing to hide. Only then do they move towards sensitive topics, watching for deviations from that established norm. Here's what baseline observation looks like in practice. Notice how someone holds their hands when relaxed. Do they gesture openly or keep them tucked away? Listen to their natural speaking pace, fast or slow. Watch their typical eye contact pattern. Do they hold gaze or look away frequently? Observe their posture when comfortable, leaning back or forward, arms open or closed. Once you've mapped this territory, deviations become loud and clear. A confident person who suddenly won't meet your eyes deserves attention. A calm person who starts fidgeting matters. But a naturally fidgety person who suddenly goes completely still, that stillness is the deviation, and it might mean more than their usual movement ever would. Without baselines, you're guessing. With baselines, you're reading. The woman at the restaurant learned this the hard way. She saw anxiety and assumed deception. But anxiety and deception often look identical on the surface. The difference lives in context, in timing, in knowing what's normal for this specific person in this specific moment.
Never judge a single gesture, never assume without context, and never ever forget that the most accurate people readers aren't the ones who spot the most signals. They're the ones who know what normal looks like first. Chapter 3. The Face That Betrays. In the 1980s, a case gripped America like few others before it. The McMartin preschool trial stretched across 7 years, became the longest and most expensive criminal trial in American history, and left a community torn apart by accusations of satanic ritual abuse against children. Therapists interviewed hundreds of children using highly suggestive techniques, coaxing them to imagine, pretend, and speculate about events that likely never happened. The children eventually gave vivid testimony, but it was contaminated, rehearsed, and false. What no one caught at the time were the micro-expressions, the fleeting flashes of confusion on children's faces when asked leading questions, the fear that flickered across their features, not fear of abuse, but fear of disappointing the adults pressuring them for answers, the contempt that briefly twisted the lips of interviewers who thought they were helping. These signals lasted less than 1/25th of a second, and everyone missed them. This is why psychologist Dr. Paul Ekman's work matters. In the 1960s, Ekman traveled the world studying facial expressions across cultures, from remote tribes in Papua New Guinea to modern urban centers. He discovered something extraordinary. Certain emotions are expressed identically by every human being on Earth, regardless of culture, language, or upbringing. Fear in Tokyo looks exactly like fear in Toronto. Anger in Nairobi looks like anger in Norway. These expressions are not learned, they're biologically hardwired. Ekman identified 7 universal emotions, each with a unique facial signature. Happiness. The mouth turns up, cheeks rise, and the outer corners of the eyes crinkle into what are called crow's feet. Without those eye crinkles, it's not genuine happiness, it's a social mask. Sadness. The inner corners of the eyebrows pull upward and together. The upper eyelids droop. The lips stretch horizontally or pull down at the corners. The entire face seems to lose tension. Fear. Eyebrows raise and pull together, creating vertical lines between them. Eyes glare or narrow. Lips press together tightly or form a square shape as if shouting. Nostrils may flare. Surprise. Eyebrows shoot upward, curving high. Eyes widen. The jaw drops, parting the lips. Unlike fear, the muscles aren't tense. Surprise is neutral, a brief pause to process the unexpected. Disgust. The nose wrinkles, the upper lip raises, the eyebrows lower slightly. This is the face of physical or moral revulsion, the body's way of rejecting something poisonous. Contempt. A subtle, one-sided lip raise, half a smile, half a sneer. It's the only asymmetrical universal expression, and it signals superiority, dismissal, and moral judgment. These expressions flash across faces in less than a second, often too fast for conscious awareness, but perfectly visible to the trained eye. They reveal what words hide. They expose the truth beneath the performance. And once you learn to see them, you'll never stop noticing when someone's face betrays what their mouth refuses to say. Chapter 4. Happiness versus fake smiles. Spotting the difference. A smile is the most common facial expression you'll encounter. But here's the catch. Most smiles you see aren't real. In 1862, French neurologist Guillaume Duchesne made a discovery that would revolutionize how we understand genuine happiness. He found that authentic smiles involve 2 sets of muscles, the zygomatic major, which pulls the mouth corners upward, and the orbicularis oculi, which circles the eyes and crinkles the outer corners. A real smile engages both. A fake smile only uses the mouth. That's why genuine smiles are called Duchenne smiles today. And once you know the difference, you'll see it everywhere. Here's what to watch for. First, the eyes. When someone genuinely smiles, the skin around their eyes crinkles. Crow's feet appear, even in young people. The eyebrows dip slightly. The entire eye socket softens and lifts. Without this, you're looking at a social smile, polite, rehearsed, and empty. Second, symmetry. Genuine emotions are almost always symmetrical. Both sides of the face move together. Forced smiles often show asymmetry, one side of the mouth lifting higher or moving faster than the other. The brain struggles to fake symmetry under pressure. Third, timing. Real smiles emerge smoothly and fade gradually. Fake smiles tend to pop on and off like a light switch. They arrive too quickly, freeze too stiffly, and disappear too abruptly. Think of a flight attendant's greeting, pleasant but mechanical. Now think of seeing an old friend after years apart. That's the difference. Fourth, the eyes again, because they matter that much. In genuine happiness, the lower eyelids may tighten slightly and the eyes seem to sparkle or shine. This isn't poetry, it's physiology. Real emotion moistens the eyes and changes how light reflects off them. Here's your first try this at home challenge. For the next week, become a smile detective. In conversations, watch for the eye crinkle. When someone compliments you, notice if their smile reaches their eyes. When you see photos online, cover the lower half of faces and ask yourself, does this person look happy based only on their eyes? You'll be shocked how many happy moments were never happy at all. But here's the deeper layer. People fake smiles for reasons that aren't malicious. Social smiles smooth interactions. Polite smiles protect feelings. Professional smiles maintain appearances. A fake smile doesn't always mean deception. It often means the person is performing their social role. The real value of spotting fake smiles isn't catching liars. It's recognizing who genuinely lights up around you. It's noticing whose eyes soften when you walk in a room. It's feeling the difference between being tolerated and truly welcomed. That colleague whose smile never reaches your eyes, they're not your enemy, they're just not your friend. That partner whose face crinkles when you come home, that's love written in muscle and bone. The face never lies about happiness. It only reveals who truly feels it.
Chapter 5. Fear, surprise, and the split second that changes everything. Imagine this. You're walking alone at night through a quiet parking garage. Your footsteps echo against concrete. The fluorescent lights buzz overhead. You're already slightly on edge, that ancient part of your brain scanning for threat. You round a corner and someone steps out from behind a pillar. What flashes across your face in that first split second? If you're like most people, your eyebrows shoot up, your eyes widen, your mouth drops open. Classic surprise. But within that same instant, faster than thought, your expression shifts. Eyebrows pull together, eyes widen further but now with tension, lips stretch horizontally. Surprise transforms into fear. This is why these two emotions get confused more than any others. They often arrive together, one triggering the other in rapid succession, but they are fundamentally different, and learning to distinguish them could change how you read danger, truth, and hidden emotion forever. Surprise is neutral. It's the brain's "what was that?" response. It lasts less than 1 second, usually just a flash, because its only job is to clear the mental deck for whatever comes next. During surprise, the body isn't preparing for action. It's just pausing to process. Eyebrows curve high, eyes widen without tension. The jaw drops loosely. The face opens like a camera aperture, letting in more light. Fear is anything but neutral. Fear is the body preparing for survival. The eyebrows pull together, not just up. The upper eyelids rise so high that white shows above the iris, sometimes called wide-eyed fear. The lips stretch horizontally towards the ears, tensing the entire mouth. The face doesn't just open, it tightens, ready to scream or flee. Unlike surprise's brief pause, fear can linger, growing or fading depending on the threat. Here's the simplest way to remember. Surprise asks a question. Fear answers it. Surprise says, "What's that?" Fear says, "Run." Now apply this to real life.
Someone receives unexpected news and their face flashes surprise. Normal. But if that surprise is immediately followed by fear, something about that news terrifies them. If surprise never comes at all, if they jump straight to fear, they may have been expecting something bad. If fear flashes when there's no visible threat, the threat may be inside their head, memories, guilt, anticipation of danger you can't see. Consider a suspect shown a photograph. If genuine surprise flashes first, they weren't expecting that image. If fear flashes immediately after, the image means something threatening to them. If there's no surprise at all, just immediate fear or anger, they may have known exactly what was coming and dreaded it. Context matters here more than anywhere. Surprise in a birthday party is delight. Surprise in an interrogation is truth surfacing. Fear in a dark alley is survival. Fear in response to a simple question is a leak. The next time you see someone's face shift rapidly, slow it down in your mind. Was that surprise or fear? Did they pause to process or instantly prepare to protect? The difference between these two expressions is the difference between someone encountering the unexpected and someone confronting what terrifies them. And that difference, it changes everything.
Chapter 6. Anger, Disgust, and Contempt, the Dangerous Emotions. A married couple sits in a therapist's office. The wife describes a recurring fight, her husband's dismissive tone, his refusal to listen, his habit of walking away mid-argument. As she speaks, the husband's face does something subtle but devastating. The left corner of his mouth lifts slightly, just a millimeter, while the rest of his face remains still. A half smile, a sneer. It lasts less than half a second. The therapist notices immediately. She's seen this expression destroy hundreds of relationships. It's contempt. And, according to Dr. John Gottman's research at the University of Washington, it's the single greatest predictor of divorce, detectable with over 90% accuracy. This is why anger, disgust, and contempt deserve special attention. These three emotions don't just signal discomfort, they signal danger to relationships, to negotiations, to trust, and sometimes to your physical safety. Let's start with anger, the most obvious of the three. When anger flashes, eyebrows lower and pull together, creating vertical lines between them. The eyes glare, sometimes narrowing, sometimes bulging with intensity. The lips may press together tightly, disappearing into a thin line, or pull back to expose teeth in a snarl. Nostrils may flare. The entire face tenses, preparing the body for conflict. Anger says, "I will fight for what I want." It's confrontational, but honest. There's no hiding in anger. Disgust is different. Disgust wrinkles the nose and raises the upper lip, sometimes exposing the upper teeth. The eyebrows lower slightly. This is the face of rejection, the same expression you'd make smelling spoiled milk or stepping in something foul. In negotiations, disgust appears when someone hears an offer they find morally offensive or insultingly low. A flash of disgust across a client's face tells you they're not just rejecting your proposal, they're repulsed by it. That's valuable information if you're paying attention. But contempt is the most dangerous of all. Contempt is the only universal asymmetrical expression, a one-sided lip raise, sometimes accompanied by a slight eye roll or chin lift. It signals moral superiority, dismissal, and disrespect. Contempt says, "I am better than you. You are beneath me. What you feel doesn't matter." In that couple therapy session, the husband's contemptuous micro-expression told the therapist everything. His words might have been calm, his tone might have been controlled, but that fleeting sneer revealed his true position. He didn't see his wife as an equal partner in conflict. He saw her as an annoyance to be endured. Research shows that when contempt becomes habitual in relationships, the end is almost inevitable, not because conflict exists, but because respect has died. Here's what makes contempt especially destructive. It's often silent. Anger raises voices, disgust creates distance, but contempt poisons slowly, hidden behind polite words and social masks. a manager's micro-expression of contempt during your presentation, a friend's fleeting sneer when you share good news, a partner's barely visible lip raise during an apology. These moments tell you more about the relationship than any conversation ever could. In high-stakes negotiations, watch for contempt. If the other party flashes it during your proposal, they're not just rejecting your terms, they're rejecting you. Power dynamics have shifted, respect has eroded. You're no longer negotiating as equals. Anger can be resolved, disgust can be addressed, but contempt is the emotion that says, "You're not worth my anger." And once someone believes that, the relationship is already over, even if neither of you has said a word.
Chapter 7. The Body Never Lies. Posture and Power. Watch any political debate with the sound off, and you'll witness a silent war. In 2016, during a town hall event, two candidates stood just feet apart. One kept his hands gripping the podium, shoulders hunched slightly forward, feet planted close together. He rarely moved from that spot. The other roamed freely, gestured widely, stepped toward the audience, and occasionally invaded the first candidate's space without apology. No words were exchanged about power that night. None were needed. The first candidate was playing defense. The second was playing offense, and everyone watching, consciously or not, felt who was winning. This is the language of posture and power. It's been spoken since humans first stood upright, and it never lies. Let's start with the most basic distinction: open versus closed postures. Open postures feature uncrossed arms and legs, exposed palms, relaxed shoulders, and a visible chest. They signal confidence, honesty, and receptivity. The body says, "I have nothing to hide. I'm comfortable here." Closed postures do the opposite. Crossed arms, crossed legs, hunched shoulders, and hidden hands signal defensiveness, discomfort, or withdrawal. The body creates barriers, protecting the vulnerable core. Now, watch for territorial signals, the ways people claim space. Dominant individuals take up more room. They spread their belongings. They lean back with arms stretched wide. They plant feet shoulder-width apart and stand tall. Submissive individuals make themselves smaller. They compress their bodies, tuck in their elbows, cross their legs tightly, and avoid expanding into available space. Watch any group photo and you'll see the hierarchy written in who takes space and who shrinks. Height manipulation is another power signal. People literally raise themselves to assert dominance, standing when others sit, stepping onto higher ground, straightening their spines when challenged. Submissive postures lower the body, bowing, crouching, tilting the head down, making the self physically smaller. This is ancient wiring. Bigger means stronger, smaller means safer. But here's where posture gets honest: the feet. People control their faces, they control their hands, they almost never control their feet. Feet point toward what interests us and away from what repels us. In conversation, honest engagement means feet pointing at the speaker. Disinterest or desire to leave means feet pointing toward the exit, even while the face smiles and nods. In that same political debate, notice how often candidates' feet angled toward the audience versus toward each other. Those angles revealed who they were really trying to reach. Leaning tells its own story. Forward lean signals interest, attraction, or engagement. Backward lean signals confidence, evaluation, or withdrawal. In negotiations, when someone leans back with hands behind their head, they're signaling dominance. Sometimes cooperation, sometimes superiority. When they lean forward with narrowed eyes, they're moving in for the kill. The next time you're in a meeting, watch the hierarchy reveal itself without a single word. Who leans back with confidence? Who leans forward trying to prove value? Who takes space and who apologizes for existing? Who angles toward power and who angles toward the door? Posture never performs, it only reveals. And once you learn to read it, you'll never need someone to tell you where you stand again. Their body already told you the moment you walked in.
Chapter 8. Hands, the windows to anxiety and confidence. Imagine two candidates sitting across from the same interviewer. Candidate A rests their hands on the table, palms partially visible, gestures naturally while speaking, and occasionally touches fingertips together in a gentle steeple. When asked a difficult question, they pause, hands still, then respond smoothly. Candidate B keeps their hands under the table, then moves them to their lap, then grips the chair arms, then touches their neck, then rubs their palms together, then repeats the cycle. When the difficult question comes, they briefly cover their mouth, then rub their nose, then adjust their collar. Both candidates said they were confident, but their hands told completely different stories. Hands are the most expressive part of the human body after the face. They're also the most honest. While we learn to control facial expressions from childhood, our hands often operate beneath conscious awareness, broadcasting our true emotional state to anyone who pays attention. Let's start with palm displays. Open palms facing upward or toward another person signal honesty, openness, and submission. It's an ancient gesture showing you hold no weapon, have nothing to hide. In job interviews, candidates who gesture with open palms appear more trustworthy, even if their words are identical to those with hidden hands. Palms down, by contrast, signal authority and control. A manager patting the air to silence a room isn't asking, they're commanding. Steepling, pressing fingertips together to form a church-like shape, is a powerful confidence signal. Confident people steeple when they're thinking, listening, or preparing to speak. The higher the steeple, the more confident the person. Watch for chin rests with steepled fingers during negotiations. That's someone who believes they're winning. Now watch the pacifying behaviors, the self-soothing gestures people use when anxiety rises. Rubbing the palms together, playing with jewelry or watches, smoothing clothes repeatedly, touching the neck, face, hair, or mouth. These aren't random movements. They're the nervous system's attempt to calm itself, releasing tension through repetitive touch. The especially significant is the neck, which contains dense nerve endings, and touching it releases calming endorphins. When someone rubs the back of their neck during questioning, they're not just thinking, they're soothing. Fidgeting deserves special attention. Conventional wisdom says fidgeting means nervousness or deception. But here's the nuance. Fidgeting means excess energy needs release. That energy could come from anxiety, excitement, boredom, or simply too much coffee. The key is context. Fidgeting during a casual conversation suggests restlessness. Fidgeting when asked about a missing $10,000, that's different. Hands also reveal truth through stillness. A normally expressive person whose hands suddenly freeze mid-gesture may be entering dangerous territory. The brain has redirected resources from movement to constructing a lie or managing high emotion. Stillness isn't always calm, sometimes it's control. In that interview room, candidate A got the job, not because their resume was better, it wasn't, but because their hands communicated what their words claimed: confidence, honesty, and self-possession. Candidate B's hands screamed anxiety so loudly that no one heard a word they said. Watch your own hands today. What are they telling people about you? And more importantly, what are other people's hands revealing that their mouths will never say?
Chapter 9. Feet First. Why the Lower Body Tells the Truth. A seasoned sales representative sits across from a potential client. They've been negotiating for an hour. The client has nodded at every proposal, smiled at every price point, and said all the right things. The sales rep should feel confident. But he's not watching the client's face. He's watching his feet. Beneath the table, those feet have been pointing directly at the door for the last 45 minutes. They've shifted positions 6 times. The left foot has started tapping, barely visible but rhythmic. The client's upper body says, "I'm interested." His feet say, "I'm leaving." The sales rep doesn't push for the close. He changes tactics, addresses unspoken concerns, rebuilds connection. 2 weeks later, the deal closes. Not because of what was said, but because someone paid attention to what was running for the exit. This is the power of feet-first observation. Evolutionarily, your feet developed one primary purpose: movement. Run toward food, run from danger. Chase, flee, survive. The brain's oldest wiring connects feet directly to the limbic system, the emotional center, with very little conscious interference. While you've spent a lifetime learning to control your facial expressions and moderate your hand gestures, your feet, they've been ignored, and that's what makes them the most honest part of your body. Here's what to watch for. First, orientation. Feet point toward what interests us and away from what repels us. In conversation, honest engagement means feet aimed at the other person. When someone's torso faces you, but their feet point elsewhere, their body is already leaving, even if social obligation keeps them planted. The technical term is venting, and it reveals true intention better than any polite words. Second, tapping and bouncing. Rhythmic foot movement releases excess energy. That energy might be excitement, but it's often anxiety or impatience. In sales negotiations, foot tapping during your presentation means you're losing them. In romantic settings, foot bouncing during conversation may indicate nervous attraction. Either way, the feet are broadcasting what the face hides. Third, leg crossing shifts. Watch how and when people change leg position. A sudden cross or uncross often marks an emotional shift, discomfort with a topic, disagreement with a point, or a decision made. During interrogations, suspects frequently adjust leg position immediately after being asked a threatening question. The upper body stays composed, the legs reveal the hit. Fourth, the happy feet dance. When someone receives good news they're trying to play cool about, their feet often bounce or wiggle with joy, even while their face remains neutral. A job offer accepted, a negotiation won, a crush reciprocated. The feet celebrate before the brain remembers to hide. Fifth, freezing. When a normally expressive person's feet go completely still, pay attention. Freezing is the oldest survival response, playing dead when threatened. In conversation, sudden foot stillness often signals that you've touched something dangerous. The person is managing their reaction, controlling their body, hiding their truth, and your feet just told you. In that sales negotiation, the client's feet were honest even when his words weren't. They revealed discomfort, desire to escape, and unspoken objections. The sales rep who saved that deal didn't save it with better arguments. He saved it by reading the body's oldest language. The next time you're in conversation, let your gaze drop. Forget the smile. Ignore the nods. Watch the feet. They've been telling the truth your whole life. You just weren't looking.
Chapter 10. The Voice Beneath the Words. Paralanguage Decoded. On November 13, 2009, a Missouri woman named Russ Faria called 911 to report that he had just found his wife stabbed to death in their home. His voice was frantic. His words tumbled out in a rush. He gave the dispatcher his address, pleaded for help, and stayed on the line until officers arrived. That 911 call would send him to prison for life. Prosecutors played the recording for the jury and pointed to his tone, his pauses, his word choices. He was too polite, they argued. He said please too many times. His voice lacked the raw wail of genuine grief. A dispatch supervisor testified that the call sounded staged, that she'd been trained to evaluate calls and knew a guilty caller when she heard one. There was just one problem. Russ Faria was innocent. He spent 3.5 years in prison for a murder he didn't commit before being acquitted at a second trial. This is the power and the danger of listening to the voice beneath the words. Vocal cues reveal truth, but only when interpreted with context, science, and humility. Welcome to paralanguage, everything that accompanies speech without being speech itself. Tone, pitch, pace, volume, pauses, and the tiny sounds we make between words. These elements carry more emotional meaning than the words they surround. Tone is the emotional color of speech. Flat tone suggests boredom or detachment.
Warm tone signals openness. Sharp, clipped tone betrays irritation, no matter how polite the words. When someone says, "I'm fine," with a tone that could cut glass, they're not fine. The tone leaked the truth. Pitch rises under stress. The vocal cords tighten when the sympathetic nervous system activates, pushing voice higher. This is why people sound shrill when lying or nervous, and why a sudden pitch spike during a sensitive question deserves attention. Research on investigative interviews found that deceptive suspects showed vocal pitch changes of 20 to 40% during lies. Pace reveals cognitive load. Truthful answers come at a natural rhythm. Lies require construction. When someone slows down mid-sentence, repeats themselves, or fills space with and like, they may be building their story in real time. In 911 call analysis, researchers found that deceptive callers often gave rambling, unstructured accounts, while truthful callers focused urgently on getting help. Volume shouts emotion. Raised volume means anger, excitement, or defensiveness. Sudden drops can signal shame, sadness, or secrecy. Whispered words in a normal conversation suggest the speaker knows they're saying something they shouldn't. Pauses are where truth hides. A well-placed pause conveys confidence, but a pause before answering a simple question, "What time did you arrive?" signals hesitation. The brain needs extra seconds to construct, not recall. Here's the hard truth Russ Faria learned. No single vocal cue proves deception. Politeness isn't guilt. Emotion isn't always visible. The most dangerous mistake in reading people is hearing what you expect instead of what's actually there. The voice reveals, but only context, baseline, and humility can interpret it correctly.
Chapter 11. The Psychology of Deception. How Liars Leak Truth. In a small interrogation room, a suspect sat across from two detectives. He'd been brought in for questioning about a missing woman, his girlfriend of 3 years. The detectives had no physical evidence, no witnesses, no confession, just a feeling that something was wrong. They started with simple questions. Where did you last see her? What did you do that day? When did you realize she was gone? The suspect answered smoothly, calmly, with appropriate emotion. Then the lead detective changed tactics. "Tell me everything you did that day," he said, "but start from the end and work backward to the beginning." The suspect's eyes flickered. His mouth opened, then closed. He started speaking, then stopped. His narrative collapsed into confusion. He contradicted himself, repeated details, then forgot what he'd already said. In under 2 minutes, his carefully constructed story fell apart. This is cognitive load theory in action, and it's why liars always lose when you know where to look. Lying is mentally expensive. The truth lives in memory, ready to be retrieved. Lies must be invented, rehearsed, monitored, and maintained. When someone tells the truth, their brain accesses stored information. When someone lies, their brain must simultaneously invent a plausible fiction, suppress the truth, monitor your reactions, adjust for consistency, and manage their own anxiety. That's 5 mental tasks instead of 1, and the brain leaks under the pressure. Here's what those leaks look like. First, timing delays. Truthful answers emerge immediately. The brain simply retrieves. Deceptive answers show hesitation, however slight. The suspect who repeats your question before answering, "What did I do that day? Let me think." They're buying time to build. The pause before "I didn't take the money" is often longer before "I didn't have coffee this morning." One requires recall, the other requires construction. Second, distancing language. Liars subconsciously remove themselves from their lies. Instead of "I didn't take the money," they say "the money wasn't taken." Instead of "I didn't cheat," they say "nothing happened." This passive voice and pronoun deletion is psychological distancing. The liar doesn't want to associate themselves with the falsehood. Truthful people own their statements. "I didn't do it" is simple and direct. Third, over-explaining. Truth is simple. Lies are complicated.
When someone offers excessive detail, specific times, irrelevant observations, unnecessary context, they're trying to make fiction feel real. The woman who describes the weather, her outfit, the exact position of the coffee cups, and what song played on the radio while discussing where she was last night, she's working too hard. Truth doesn't need decoration. Fourth, inconsistency across repetitions. Truthful people tell the same story every time, even when asked in different orders or from different angles. Liars struggle because they're recalling their fiction, not the actual event. Ask the story forward, then backward, then from the middle. Truth survives, lies collapse. In that interrogation room, the suspect didn't confess that day, but the detectives left knowing he was guilty. Not because of what he said, but because of how his brain couldn't handle the load. The truth was simple. His lies were complicated, and complication always leaks. Truth lives in memory. Lies live in imagination. And imagination can never keep up with reality.
Chapter 12. Spotting Manipulators Before They Exploit You. A client I'll call Sarah came to me after 2 years in a relationship that left her questioning her own sanity. Her partner was charming, attentive, and well-liked by everyone who met him. Friends told her she was lucky. Family said he was perfect. But Sarah couldn't sleep. She couldn't trust her own memory. Every disagreement ended with her apologizing, even when she knew she was right. Every concern she raised was met with, "You're too sensitive," or "That never happened," or "You're imagining things." She'd started keeping a journal just to prove to herself that reality existed. Her partner found it and accused her of being paranoid. Sarah wasn't paranoid. She was being manipulated. Manipulators don't wear signs. They wear masks, carefully crafted, socially calibrated, and designed to exploit your empathy, your loyalty, and your desire to see the good in people. Learning to spot them isn't cynicism, it's self-preservation. Here are the patterns. Love bombing. Manipulators often start too fast, too intense. They declare love within weeks. They mirror your interests perfectly. They make you feel like the most special person alive. This isn't genuine connection, it's investment. They're building emotional debt you'll repay later. Healthy relationships develop gradually. Love bombing is a down payment on control. Gaslighting. This is the systematic erosion of your reality. "I never said that." "You're remembering wrong." "You're crazy." "You're too sensitive." These phrases aren't accidental. They're designed to make you doubt your perception so you depend on theirs. When you constantly apologize, question your memory, or feel confused after conversations, you are being gaslit. Sarah's journal wasn't paranoia, it was survival. Triangulation. Manipulators bring third parties into your dynamic to create jealousy, insecurity, or confusion. Everyone agrees with me. Even your friends think you're overreacting. My ex never treated me this way. This isolates you and positions them as the reasonable one while you are cast as the problem. You end up defending yourself against invisible accusers. Guilt tripping. "After everything I've done for you, I guess I'm just not important? If you really cared, you would." These statements aren't expressions of hurt. They're weapons. They hijack your compassion and turn it into obligation. You start doing things not because you want to, but because avoiding guilt requires it. Inconsistency. Manipulators say one thing, do another. Promise, then disappear. Shift stories depending on audience. This inconsistency isn't forgetfulness, it's strategy. Confusion creates control. When you never know what's real, they get to define reality. For Sarah, recognition was the turning point. She named the behaviors, not to him, but to herself. She stopped explaining, stopped defending, stopped hoping he'd change. She set boundaries. When he violated them, she walked away. It took 2 years to recover, but she got her sanity back.
Here's your protection protocol. Trust your body. If you feel drained, confused, anxious, or small after interactions, something is wrong. Name the behavior silently. That's gaslighting. That's guilt tripping. That's inconsistency. Then set boundaries. You don't need to announce them, just enforce them. Limit access. Stop over-explaining. Let your clarity be enough. Manipulators thrive where self-trust is weak. Strengthen yours. They win when you doubt yourself. Stop doubting. They need your confusion to survive. Choose clarity instead.
Chapter 13. Personality Blueprints. The Big Five in Action. Walk into any office, and you'll see them within minutes. The employee whose desk is covered in travel photos, art prints, and books on philosophy, she's always suggesting new approaches, questioning old methods, and dreaming about the next big idea. Across from her sits the spreadsheet king. His calendar is color-coded 3 months out. His to-do list is prioritized by urgency and importance. He never misses a deadline and visibly twitches when others do. Down the hall, the sales floor hums with energy. One rep is working the room, laughing with colleagues, interrupting conversations to share stories, and thriving on the chaos. In the corner office, the quiet analyst works with headphones on, speaks only when necessary, and produces reports so detailed they've become company legend. At the weekly meeting, the team lead mediates yet another conflict between two members, one who can't stop apologizing and another who can't understand why everyone's so sensitive. The first hates conflict. The second just wants people to say what they mean. These aren't random personalities. They're expressions of the Big Five, the most empirically validated model of human personality in psychology. Once you understand it, you'll never see behavior as random again. Openness reflects curiosity and imagination. High openness individuals crave novelty, ideas, and experiences. They're the ones suggesting new software, questioning traditions, and reading for fun. Low openness individuals prefer routine, tradition, and concrete facts. They keep things running reliably while the high openness folks chase new horizons. Conscientiousness reveals organization and dependability. High conscientious people are planners. Their desks are organized, their emails are answered promptly, they follow through. Low conscientious individuals are more spontaneous, sometimes creatively so, but also prone to missed deadlines and scattered focus. Every office needs both. The planners build the structure, the spontaneists keep it flexible. Extroversion is about where people draw energy. High extroversion individuals recharge through social interaction. They think out loud, process verbally, and thrive in groups. Low extroversion individuals, introverts, recharge alone. They need quiet to think, speak after processing, and find constant social demands draining. Neither is better, they're just wired differently. Agreeableness shows up in warmth and cooperation. Highly agreeable people smooth conflicts, prioritize harmony, and struggle to say no. They're the peacemakers, the supporters, the ones who remember birthdays. Low agreeableness individuals are more direct, competitive, and willing to challenge. They're not mean, they just value honesty over harmony. They'll tell you your idea is bad while the agreeable person nods and worries about your feelings. Neuroticism reflects emotional sensitivity. High neuroticism individuals feel emotions deeply and react strongly to stress. They may over-apologize, appear anxious, or struggle with criticism. Low neuroticism individuals stay calm under pressure, bounce back quickly, and seem unshakable. In crisis, you want both, the sensitive ones who notice problems early and the stable ones who keep everyone functioning. That team there, the conflict between the apologizer and the direct communicator, isn't personal, it's personality. One high in agreeableness, one low. One high in neuroticism, one low. Neither wrong, just wired differently.
When you understand the Big Five, you stop judging behavior as good or bad. You start seeing it as data, and data helps you communicate, motivate, and connect with anyone, no matter how different their wiring is from yours.
Chapter 14. Attachment Styles and Why People Cling or Run. Two people sit at a cafe. The woman says, "You seemed distant last night. Is everything okay?" The man's jaw tightens. "I was tired. Why do you always analyze everything?" She pulls back, voice softening. "I'm not analyzing. I just wanted to check in." He looks away. "There's nothing to check. You're making problems out of nothing." She falls silent, already rehearsing the apology she'll give later, for caring, for noticing, for wanting connection. This conversation isn't really about last night. It's about two attachment styles colliding. Attachment theory began with John Bowlby and Mary Ainsworth's observations of how infants bond with caregivers. What they discovered changed psychology forever. The way we're cared for in our earliest years creates internal working models of relationships that persist into adulthood. We carry our childhood into every conversation, every conflict, every connection. Here are the 4 attachment styles and how they show up. Secure attachment. About 50% of adults fall here. Securely attached people had caregivers who were consistently responsive. As adults, they're comfortable with intimacy, confident in themselves, and able to balance independence with connection. They communicate clearly, trust easily, and don't panic when relationships hit rough patches. In that cafe, a secure partner might have said, "I wasn't distant intentionally, just tired, but I appreciate you checking in." Anxious attachment. Anxious individuals had inconsistent caregiving, sometimes responsive, sometimes not. They learned that connection requires vigilance. As adults, they crave intimacy but fear abandonment. They overanalyze texts, need constant reassurance, and interpret neutral behavior as rejection. In that cafe, the woman's question wasn't controlling, it was anxious wiring seeking safety. Her silent apology rehearsal is classic anxious pattern, assuming she's the problem. Avoidant attachment. Avoidant individuals had caregivers who were distant or rejecting. They learned self-reliance because others couldn't be trusted. As adults, they value independence above connection, see intimacy as threatening, and withdraw when emotions rise. In that cafe, the man's defensiveness and dismissal aren't cruelty, they're protection. His "you're making problems" is avoidant wiring panicking at emotional proximity. Disorganized attachment. The rarest and most complex. Disorganized individuals often experience trauma or extreme inconsistency. They both crave and fear connection, approach and retreat, love and push away. Their behavior can seem chaotic because internally, intimacy feels like survival threat. Now watch that cafe conversation through attachment eyes. She asks for connection, he feels trapped. She pursues, he withdraws. The more she reaches, the more he runs. The more he runs, the more she reaches. This is the anxious avoidant trap, and it destroys relationships daily. Neither person is wrong, both are wounded. She learned that love requires vigilance, he learned that closeness means suffocation. Their childhoods are fighting in present tense. Understanding attachment doesn't excuse behavior, but it explains it. It transforms "why are you so needy" into "you must have learned early that connection isn't guaranteed." It transforms "why are you so cold" into "you must have learned early that safety means alone." When you recognize attachment styles, you stop taking behavior personally. You see the wound behind the wall, the fear behind the reach, and sometimes, just sometimes, you find a way to meet in the middle. Chapter 15. Body Clusters. Reading the full sentence, not one word. A woman watches a video of her first date with someone she's been seeing for months. She's not watching to reminisce, she's watching to learn.
As an experiment, she mutes the sound and studies the body language frame by frame. There's a moment she'd forgotten. 20 minutes into the date, her date crosses his arms. She remembers feeling a flicker of concern. Was he uncomfortable? Bored? Rejecting her? But now, watching with the sound off, she sees what she missed in real time. His arms are crossed, yes, but he's also leaning forward. His feet point directly at her. He's smiling, making steady eye contact, and his head is slightly tilted, the universal signal of interest. The crossed arms aren't defensiveness, they're just how he sits when he's comfortable. She'd almost let a single gesture rewrite an entire memory. This is why body clusters matter more than any isolated signal. A body cluster is a group of nonverbal behaviors that, when observed together, tell a consistent emotional story. One gesture is a word, a cluster is a sentence, and you wouldn't judge a book by one word any more than you should judge a person by one gesture. Here are the most common clusters you'll encounter. The openness cluster. Uncrossed arms and legs, leaning slightly forward, relaxed shoulders, head tilted, open palms visible, consistent eye contact. This cluster says, I'm receptive, I'm engaged, I have nothing to hide. When you see these signals together, the person is psychologically open to connection. The defensiveness cluster. Crossed arms and crossed legs, leaning back or angling away, minimal eye contact, tight lips, tense shoulders. This cluster says, I feel threatened or criticized. I'm protecting myself. Notice the and. One crossed arm means little. Both arms and legs crossed, that's a wall. The attraction cluster. Feet and torso pointed directly at the other person. Dilated pupils, frequent smiling, hair touching or clothing adjustment, light, brief touches, mirroring of posture and gestures. This cluster says, I'm drawn to you, I want connection. When you see these together, attraction is real, not imagined. The stress cluster. Fidgeting hands, frequent self-touch, neck, face, mouth, shallow or irregular breathing, rapid blinking. This cluster says, I'm under pressure. My nervous system is activated. The cause could be lying, anxiety, or simply a difficult conversation, but something is wrong. The boredom cluster. Glancing around the room, looking at phones or watches, slouched posture, leaning away, blank facial expression, tapping fingers or feet. This cluster says, I'm mentally elsewhere. The body is present, the mind has left. In that video date, the crossed arms were just one word, but the full sentence, forward lean, pointed feet, tilted head, eye contact, said something completely different. Interest, connection, comfort. The next time you read someone, resist the urge to judge a single signal. Wait for the cluster. Watch for the pattern. Let 3 or 4 gestures align before you decide what they mean. One gesture is ambiguity. A cluster is clarity. And in a world where everyone's trying to hide something, clarity is the only thing worth trusting.
Chapter 16. Situational Awareness. Reading the room first. Before you can read any individual, you must first read the room they're in. Imagine walking into a boardroom 15 minutes before a meeting starts. The CEO sits at the head of the table, laptop open, phone buzzing, coffee within reach. 3 junior staff huddle near the door, speaking in whispers, glancing toward the CEO's position. One manager sits alone midway down the table, reviewing papers, not looking up. The assistant lingers near the coffee station, refilling cups that don't need refilling. No one has spoken a word about power, but power is written everywhere. This is situational awareness, the ability to read environment, hierarchy, and emotional temperature before focusing on individuals. Without it, your people reading will be consistently wrong, because behavior isn't just about who someone is, it's about where they are, who's watching, and what's at stake. Here's what to scan for when you enter any room. Power hierarchy. Where is the highest status person positioned?
In Western cultures, power sits at the head of tables, in corner offices, in seats with the best view of the door. Watch who occupies these spaces naturally and who avoids them. Watch who speaks first, who interrupts, who gets listened to. Watch whose posture expands and whose contracts. Hierarchy reveals itself within seconds if you're paying attention. Emotional temperature. Is the room tense, relaxed, excited, fearful? Look at facial expressions across multiple people. Are shoulders raised or relaxed? Are people leaning toward each other or pulling away? Is laughter genuine or nervous? You don't need anyone to tell you the mood. The room broadcasts it constantly. Alliances and divisions. Who sits near whom? Who avoids sitting near whom? Who mirrors whose posture? Who looks at whom when something important is said? In the boardroom, watch the junior staff's eyes during the CEO's comments. Do they look at the CEO or at each other? The direction of attention reveals who truly holds influence. Environmental pressure. Is the room too hot, too cold, too loud, too crowded? Physical discomfort creates behavioral artifacts that have nothing to do with personality. Someone with crossed arms in a freezing room isn't defensive, they're cold. Someone checking their phone in a chaotic space isn't disinterested, they're overstimulated. Always rule out environment before diagnosing individual behavior. The performance layer. In high-stakes settings, everyone performs. The on-job interview, the board meeting, the first date, these are theaters. People manage impressions. Your job is to see through the performance to the person beneath. Watch for moments when the mask slips, the micro-expression before the smile, the sigh before the nod, the tension before the calm response. Here's your boardroom observation exercise. Next time you're in a group setting, spend the first 5 minutes saying nothing. Just scan. Map the hierarchy. Feel the temperature. Notice who leads and who follows, who's comfortable and who's performing, who's genuinely engaged and who's counting minutes until escape. Then, when you finally speak, you won't be responding to individuals alone. You'll be responding to the entire ecosystem they inhabit, and that changes everything. Because people aren't islands, they're currents in a larger ocean. Read the ocean first, and you'll finally understand why each wave moves the way it does.
Chapter 17. Emotional Intelligence. Feeling what others hide. A friend calls you after losing someone they love. You pick up the phone, heart already heavy because you know what's coming. They speak in fragments, half sentences, long silences, words that stumble and fall. You want so badly to help, to fix, to make it better. What do you say? If you're like most people, you reach for comfort phrases. They're in a better place. Everything happens for a reason. At least they're not suffering anymore. Let me know if you need anything. Every one of these is sympathy, pity wrapped in words offered from a safe distance, and every one of them, despite good intentions, lands like a wall between you and the person hurting. Now imagine a different response. You say nothing at first. You just breathe with them. When they pause, you wait. When they cry, you stay. When they finally say, "I don't know how to do this," you don't offer solutions. You say, "I can't imagine what this feels like, but I'm here. I'm not going anywhere." That's empathy, and it changes everything. Emotional intelligence, EQ, is the ability to recognize, understand, and respond to emotions in yourself and others. It's not about being nice all the time. It's about being present, accurate, and connected. And it begins with one crucial distinction: empathy versus sympathy. Sympathy says, "I feel sorry for you." It's connection from a distance, looking across a gap at someone else's pain. Empathy says, "I feel with you." It's climbing into the gap and sitting beside them, even when you don't know what to say. Here's how to build it. Non-reactivity. When someone shares pain, your nervous system may activate. You might want to fix, flee, or distract. High EQ people notice these impulses and choose stillness instead. They don't need to solve, they just need to stay. The grieving friend doesn't need your answers, they need your presence.
Attunement. This is the ability to match someone's emotional frequency without losing your own. If they're slow and heavy, you slow down. If they're angry, you don't match the anger, but you don't flee from it either. You calibrate to their channel while staying centered in yourself. Validation. Not agreement, validation. That makes sense. Of course you feel that way. Anyone would hurt in your position. These phrases don't say you're right. They say your feelings are real and acceptable. For the grieving friend, validation sounds like, this is unbearable, and you're still here. That takes everything you have. Reading what's unspoken. Emotional intelligence notices the tremor beneath the words, the tears held back, the anger that's actually fear wearing armor. When your friend says, I'm fine, with a voice that cracks, EQ doesn't accept the words. It gently asks, you sure? I'm here if you're not. In that conversation with your grieving friend, your emotional intelligence matters more than any words you could offer. They won't remember your phrases. They'll remember that you stayed, that you didn't run, that you didn't try to fix what can't be fixed. That's empathy in action. And it's the rarest gift one human can give another.
Chapter 18. Intuition, the science behind gut feelings. A professional poker player sits at the final table of a major tournament. He's studied his opponent for hours, every bet, every blink, every breath. The math says he should call. The pot odds are right. The probabilities favor him. But something in his stomach says no. He folds. His opponent turns over the winning hand. Later, reviewing the footage, the poker player notices what his conscious mind missed, a micro-expression of contempt that flashed across his opponent's face for 1/25th of a second. His gut registered it before his eyes could. That's not magic. That's pattern recognition processed below conscious awareness. Now consider a different story. A woman is driving home on a route she's taken 1,000 times. Suddenly, for no reason she can name, she slows down. Her hands tighten on the wheel. Something feels wrong. Seconds later, a car runs a red light ahead, exactly where she would have been if she'd maintained her speed. Her gut saved her life. Intuition is often dismissed as mystical or unscientific, but neuroscience tells a different story. What we call intuition is actually the brain's ability to process information below conscious awareness, detecting patterns, recognizing threats, and generating warnings before the thinking mind catches up. The enteric nervous system, your second brain, lines your digestive tract with over 100 million neurons. It communicates constantly with your cranial brain, sending signals you experience as gut feelings. When something's wrong, your stomach tightens. When someone's dangerous, your skin prickles. These aren't emotions, they're data. Here's how to distinguish true intuition from fear or bias. Intuition is calm. It doesn't panic. It doesn't scream. It whispers. Fear is loud, urgent, and often irrational. Intuition arrives as quiet certainty, a knowing without anxiety. The poker player didn't feel terrified. He felt sure. The driver didn't panic. She simply slowed. Intuition is specific. It targets particular people, situations, or decisions. Fear is diffuse. Everything feels threatening when you're afraid. Intuition says, something about this person is off. Fear says, everyone's dangerous. One is data, the other is trauma talking. Intuition builds with experience. The more you observe people, the more patterns your subconscious stores. The poker player's intuition came from thousands of hours at the table. The driver's came from years of navigating traffic safely. Intuition is expertise compressed into feeling. Intuition can be tested. After a gut feeling, reflect. What might your subconscious have noticed? A micro-expression? A vocal shift? A postural change? The more you verify your intuitions, the more reliable they become.
The poker player reviewed footage and found the contempt flash. That feedback loop strengthens future intuition. The driver never knew exactly what triggered her slowdown. Maybe a shadow, a sound, a flicker of movement her conscious mind missed. But her gut knew, and her gut acted. Your intuition is speaking constantly. The question is whether you're listening.
Chapter 19. Calibration. Adjusting in real time. A customer service representative answers a call from an angry client. The client's voice is loud, fast, and sharp. Years of frustration compressed into a single phone call. Most people would match that energy, raise their voice, defend, explain, escalate. This representative does something different. She lowers her voice, slows her pace, softens her tone. "I hear how frustrated you are," she says quietly, "and I want to make this right. Can you tell me exactly what happened?" The client pauses. His volume drops slightly. He's still angry, but something shifted. Someone finally listened instead of fought. This is calibration, the art of adjusting your behavior in real time based on the signals others send you. Reading people gives you the data. Calibration is what you do with it, and it's the difference between being right and being effective. Here's how calibration works in practice. Energy matching. Every person broadcasts an emotional frequency. Your job is to detect it and adjust, not to mimic, but to meet them where they are. If someone's agitated, slowing down can ground them. If someone's withdrawn, gentle warmth can invite them out. If someone's excited, matching their energy builds rapport. The key is attunement, not imitation. You're creating comfort, not performing. Question timing. A question asked too early feels like an interrogation. A question asked too late feels like disinterest. Watch for micro-readiness signals. A pause, a sigh, a slight lean forward. That's when you ask. In that customer service call, the representative didn't start with questions. She started with validation. Then, when the client's body relaxed slightly, she asked for details. Silence as tool. Most people fear silence. They rush to fill it with words, explanations, justifications, nervous chatter. Skilled calibrators let silence work for them. After a difficult question, stay quiet. The other person will often reveal more than they intended. After someone shares something vulnerable, stay quiet. Your silence says, "I'm holding this with you." Conflict de-escalation. In conflict, calibration becomes survival. If someone's angry, don't match their volume, lower yours. If they blame, don't defend, reflect. You're right, that situation was unacceptable. This isn't surrender, it's de-escalation. Once they feel heard, you can address facts. Until then, they can't hear anything over their own emotions. Boundaries while connected. Calibration doesn't mean becoming a doormat. It means adjusting your approach while holding your center. I understand you're upset and I want to help. I also need you to speak respectfully so we can solve this together. That's calibration with a spine, flexible but rooted. In that customer service call, the representative calibrated perfectly. She didn't win an argument, she solved a problem. She didn't defeat a customer, she created one who felt heard. That's the power of real-time adjustment. Reading tells you where someone is. Calibration helps you meet them there. And when you meet someone where they are, you can finally take them where they need to go. In a world that prioritizes logic and data, we've trained ourselves to ignore the quiet signals our bodies send. But those signals evolved over millions of years to keep us alive. They detect lies before evidence. They sense danger before proof. They recognize connection before conversation. The next time your stomach tightens for no reason, pause. Don't override it with logic. Don't dismiss it as anxiety. Ask it, what are you trying to tell me? Your gut has been right before. It's probably right now.
Chapter 20. The Master Reader. Becoming a mirror, not a mask. A young woman once sat across from a therapist describing years of feeling invisible. She was successful, admired, surrounded by people, but no one really saw her. They saw her role, her resume, her social mask. They didn't see the exhaustion behind the smile, the fear beneath the confidence, the loneliness in the crowded room. The therapist didn't offer solutions that day, didn't diagnose, didn't advise, didn't fix. He just watched, listened, stayed present. At the end of the session, the woman cried, not from sadness, but from relief. "You actually see me," she said. "No one has ever just seen me before." This is the final lesson in reading people. The master reader doesn't manipulate, control, or exploit. They illuminate. They become a mirror in which others recognize themselves for the first time. After 19 chapters of tools, techniques, and patterns, you might be tempted to use this knowledge as power over people, to spot lies and feel superior, to detect weakness and exploit advantage, to walk through the world as a collector of secrets, holding others at arm's length while you analyze them like specimens. That path leads to isolation, not connection. The true master reader walks a different path. Humility first. The more you learn about people, the more you realize how much you don't know. Every person is an ocean, deeper, more complex, more contradictory than any framework can capture. You never fully figure anyone out. You just keep learning, keep witnessing, keep being surprised. Master readers stay curious, never arrogant. Witnessing without agenda. When you read someone with an agenda, to win, to manipulate, to control, they feel it. Their defenses rise, their masks tighten. But when you read someone simply to understand, something shifts. They relax, they open, they let you in. The master reader's gaze is warm, not clinical, curious, not calculating. Self-awareness as foundation. Every bias, every wound, every fear you carry distorts how you see others. The master reader does the inner work. They question their assumptions. They notice when their own history is projecting onto someone else. They strive to see clearly, not through the lens of their own pain, but as a clean mirror reflecting truth. Emotional boundaries. You can sit with someone's pain without drowning in it. You can witness their chaos without losing your center. Master readers develop deep empathy with firm boundaries. They feel with others, then return to themselves. They don't carry what isn't theirs to carry. The gift of true attention. In a world of distraction, full presence is the rarest gift. When you truly see someone, not their mask, not their performance, but their actual self, you give them something they may never have received. You give them proof that they exist, that they matter, that they're not alone. The young woman in that therapist's office didn't need solutions. She needed witnessing. She needed someone to reflect her back to herself with accuracy and compassion. That reflection didn't fix her problems, but it reminded her that she was real, and sometimes that's enough. This is what master readers do, not because they're powerful, but because they're present, not because they're superior, but because they care. You now have the tools to read anyone. The question is, what will you do with that gift? The journey continues. You've just spent hours learning to see what most people miss. The micro-expressions that flash in less than a second, the feet pointing toward exits while faces smile, the vocal cracks that betray anxiety behind confident words, the clusters of behavior that reveal truth beneath performance. But here's the question that matters most. What will you do with this now? Knowledge untested is just entertainment. Skill unpracticed fades into memory. The difference between someone who merely consumes this content and someone who transforms how they move through the world is simple. Application. Starting today, begin noticing. In every conversation, watch for one signal you would have missed before. The eye crinkle behind a smile, the feet pointing away from you, the pause before an answer, the cluster that confirms or contradicts the words. You don't need to analyze everything. Just stay curious, stay present, stay awake to the silent language that's been speaking your entire life. And when you notice something, when you catch that micro-expression or feel that gut whisper, do me a favor, come back to this video and comment one word: aware. That's your challenge, not to prove anything to me, but to anchor this new part of your identity, to tell yourself and this community, I'm paying attention now. I'm seeing what I used to miss. I'm becoming someone who truly understands. Because this isn't just about reading people, it's about connecting with them. Protecting yourself from the ones who would exploit you, loving the ones who deserve to be truly seen, leading with clarity instead of confusion. If this journey resonated with you,
If you felt something shift as you learned to see beneath the surface, then subscribe. This channel exists for people like you, the ones who refuse to sleepwalk through life, the ones who want to understand not just others, but themselves. And if you're ready to go deeper, the next audiobook is already waiting. It's called The Psychology of Influence: How to Move Minds Without Manipulation. Because understanding people is one thing, learning to communicate in ways that actually reach them, that's the next level. The truth was always hidden in plain sight. Now you know how to look. See you in the next chapter. Comment AWARE if you're ready to see what others miss.